This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, I've heard of springing ahead, but really? And hog farmers, something is about to hit the fan. And we'll see a different kind of silk farming. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Hi, and welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta, and I'm starting a petition to abolish daylight savings time. I'm too old for this stuff. Well, this last week has been a whirlwind. The students who left for Florida should have weather this nice. And with good weather, we have a bunch of farmers chomping at the bit. Last week, I saw one guy out disking. This week, I couldn't keep track. You guys are all out there. You got disking, I got applications, and while I'm not 100%, I'm pretty sure I saw plenty of planting. With the soil temperatures near or above 50 degrees, I'm sure we'll be seeing a bunch more too before long. Next week, we'll have Todd Easton in to give us a report from the field. For those of you who are rolling the dice, good luck, guys. Let's hope it's a bumper crop and banner prices. A word of warning, though. April 6th is the earliest planting date for corn under the federal crop insurance rules, so keep an eye on that. There's also a lot of other stuff going on too. We'll be talking to Dave Shiley about that in a couple minutes, but first, the news. And here what the news is, I'm sorry to disappoint, but Monica is on assignment and we'll be back next week. This week, you got me. The weather here is great, but it's also affecting our friends and competitors all around the world. Reuters is reporting that despite a major drought this year, Brazil's 2012 corn crop is estimated to be over 60 million tons, much higher than the 54 million tons that the country reported last year. But the worrisome weather that has caused a downgrade in estimates in the European crop. Several droughts in Portugal and Spain is threatening to expand into other Western European countries. The countries of Norway, the eastern part of the United Kingdom, France, Spain, and of course Portugal have received 25% of their normal rainfall last month. Parts of Spain have not even seen rain since November. And Germany has received only a half of its normal rain. Crop estimates have not been downgraded severely yet, but they're keeping an eye on this area. And with warm weather and very mild winter, you knew this was coming. The Washington Post is reporting that Orkin, the pest control company, is getting 30% more calls to treat ant infestations compared to last year. And you know what? For farmers, this can only mean one more thing to worry about. California is reporting a huge increase in aphids and other pests. In Alabama, the fire ants have emerged early. Other pests who have gotten an early start in their year's work include the bean leaf beetle, the corn flea beetle, and the alfalfa weevil. On the plus side, queen bees don't lay their eggs in cold weather, so beekeepers have seen a big increase in hive activities. Let's hope that keeps up. Back to things that people can control. Here's a reminder that the House Agricultural Committee will be having a public hearing on the 2012 Farm Bill on March 23rd at Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg. The 9 a.m. hearing is designed for members of the House Agricultural Committee to hear firsthand how the U.S. farm policy is working for farmers in our area prior to writing the legislation. Closer to home, the Shelby County Farm Bureau has over $18,000 in scholarships available for Shelby County students who are interested in agriculture and that meet the other requirements. But you better be in a hurry. Applications must be in by March 26. More details are available on the website or the Shelby County Farm Bureau offices. One of the charms of driving through rural areas has been the beautiful old barns. But rising land prices may do to many of these old barns what wood rot and termites haven't done. Across the river, the Missouri Barn Alliance and Rural Network has been created for surveying and encouraging the repair of and reuse of many of these old wooden barns in the state. The problem, though, is for many farmers, the value of the land is too high not to plant, and the design of the old barns just too small to house modern farm equipment. Surprisingly, the group reports the growth of absentee owners might actually benefit the old barns. It seems that investors like to see a barn on their farms when they come out to visit. But one thing I'm sure absentee owners would not want to see, exploding manure pits. Ars Technica reports of a strange new growth. A foam, actually, has been found growing on top of manure pits in the Midwest hog farms. Since 2009, 6 farms have experienced explosions after methane trapped under this foam caught a spark. In fact, in September of last year, such an explosion killed 1,500 hogs, injured a worker, and destroyed a barn. Scientists are at a loss to explain why the foam is forming. Suspects include a new microbe, a change in food stocks, or maybe a pit cleaning soap that makes the waste foam more. Angela Kent, a U of I microbial ecologist, doesn't think it's a new microbe, but rather a shift in the environment. But she adds that more studies are required because she doesn't think anyone is very familiar with what microbes are present in a manure pit on a hog farm. And I don't see too many people lining up to volunteer to take samples either. Well, spring is in the air, maybe even summer, I guess. But with me is Dave Shiley, our extension friend from the Extension office, here to talk about, you have a whole lot of events going on in the next couple of weeks. What's going on and who should be interested?
Well, one of the big things that's coming up is for local vegetable producers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And 2 programs in one day. An opportunity on March 27th. We've got something called a Meet the Buyers event.
Okay.
And then a Food Hub Summit that evening.
Meet the Buyers events. Why would a couch potato farmer be interested in meeting buyers? Don't they have those networks set up already?
Well, those local vegetable producers, a lot of them sell at local farmers markets.
Okay.
Or they sell at a farm stand at their farm.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have a community-supported agriculture where they're buying those commodities mm-hmm. and coming in, picking them up or having them delivered. But this is an opportunity to take that next step, to sell to large companies that are kind of food service companies.
Okay. So Meet the Buyers, what sort of buyers would a farmer meet here?
Yeah, the buyers that are going to attend include Schnucks and Central Illinois mm-hmm. Produce.
Okay.
The Strawberry Fields Common Ground.
Oh, okay.
And as well as the University of Illinois Food Service mm-hmm. And Feeding Illinois, Hendrick House, and Feeding America.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people who use lots and lots of vegetables. It's probably a very efficient way for somebody who's growing tomatoes or cucumbers or carrots or whatever to sell locally to some big users, correct?
That's correct. And so they can take that next step, especially if they're kind of been in the business for a while mm-hmm. and want to expand their production. So, you know, where am I going to get rid of all this produce, you know, as I expand?
So instead of walking down the street handing tomatoes to neighbors, you can try to sell.
Exactly.
Now, those people sound like they might have some pretty particular requirements for produce. Is that correct? Right.
There are some. It's a little bit different mm-hmm. When we start selling to those larger buyers. Mm-hmm. So that's what this program is going to offer a grower the opportunity to talk to them one-on-one. What are their expectations? What are their requirements? Mm-hmm. What are their needs?
Okay.
And then prior to that, or as part of that day, the University of Illinois Extension educators are going to be providing some of those kind of tools.
Okay. So
one is called Good Agricultural Practices.
Oh, GAPs. You talked about those earlier.
Right. GAPs, as it's sometimes referred to, are just best management practices that those local producers are going to mm-hmm. need to probably adopt and maybe even get certified. There's a certification process that some of those larger buyers mm-hmm. are going to require.
Right, and it's easier to have the paperwork beforehand than go back and have all the vegetables.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to have all that done before you end up with, you know, 10,000 pounds of tomatoes and you're not ready to sell it. So
exactly.
Another thing we're going to talk about and offer folks an opportunity to learn about a program called Market Ready. And Market Ready is a marketing program to help connect, again, those mm-hmm. local growers, how to market. Because marketing is a really big part of it. I mean, growing
Yeah,
a lot of those local growers know how to produce tomatoes.
There's a lot of corn marketing
Exactly.
services. There's not as many vegetable marketing services.
Right. So those, all of our, if you can kind of think about how commercial agriculture evolved, where there are a lot of cooperatives, as an example, of corn growers. The vegetable producers are kind of at that stage too, where in order to grow bigger, they've got to form some cooperatives.
Yes. And know when the crop's going to be ready and when it can be sold and who's going to buy it and all those, how it gets transported. Sounds to me like you might need some sort of hub.
Right, exactly. Very good. And a food hub is just, the USDA kind of defines that as a central location for local producers or regional producers of vegetables to bring that to a central location. People probably have heard of distribution centers.
Right.
So this is kind of a vegetable distribution center. So it's an opportunity for all those local producers to bring it to a central location, and then to meet the needs of these large buyers that have a large need for, tomatoes as an example. Then 5 or 6 or 10 local producers can meet that need.
Right. This is great because produce and consume locally is a huge energy saver, much more efficient for everybody. So this is a good idea. How do you find out about the information on this?
Well, the Champaign County Farm Bureau and the University of Illinois Extension is co-sponsoring this event. So they're going to, you can go to the University of Illinois Extension website, or you can just call the Champaign County
Farm Bureau. Yeah, they're friendly people. They'll pick up the phone.
That's right. You need to register by March 22nd.
Okay, so you got to get going.
That's right.
Okay, so March 22nd, this is that. Now, like I said, spring is a time when nature just goes crazy and everything bursting, including baby bunnies. Now, you have a program on wildlife nuisance management too coming up, right?
Right. Well, actually, we've got a kind of an ongoing opportunity for people to learn about nuisance wildlife management on our website.
Yeah.
Because certainly gets more active in the spring, but it can be a year-round problem.
But do you have anything for the gnats that just exploded in the last day or so?
Well, no, a car driving pretty quick seemed to work for me the other day. But
I've been getting my bounty on the windshield of my car too, so that's good.
Right.
So what sort of pests are we talking about then?
Well, right now people are probably noticing Canada geese if they're near retention basins.
How can you not notice Canada geese?
Right. Canada geese this time of year are setting up their nesting territory.
Okay.
So they start getting a little more defensive.
Right. So if you don't want them, now's the time to make it uncomfortable for them, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you have a small pond, as an example, you can put a fence right at the water's edge.
Okay.
And that's going to make it less suitable. And not talking about a big fence, but an 18-inch fence.
Right.
Because Canada geese can't fly. They molt all their primary feathers in the summer, and their young can't fly. So there's a flightless time.
Right.
So they want to be able to walk from the water to the land pretty easily.
Okay.
So that's one technique.
Right.
But on our website, there are several other techniques that related to Canada geese. There is a repellent, a taste repellent that people might see, on the marketplace and think, well, that's the cure-all.
Okay.
But really, that taste repellent, like most taste repellents, has to be reapplied after heavy rains, as the grass grows, etc.
It's an expense, and you have to learn how to do it, right?
Right. So it's a training tool, but that's another opportunity for folks to manage Canada geese.
Okay. Well, so if you have a wildlife that's bugging you, go to your website. And there's lots of tools there. But the spraying the repellent reminded me, a couple weeks ago you were on talking about a new requirement, the NPDES application license. Why don't you remind people about that?
Yeah, sure. It is an opportunity to remind pond owners or about this permitting process that just changed November 1st of last year.
And a lot of people, in talking to a lot of people, the word really hasn't gotten out yet.
No, and so it's a free permitting system, but it's it's complicated in that you've got to get online, you've got to fill out this form, and it's something different. So,
right. And what you were telling me, it's the timeline that it's going to get people in trouble, correct?
Right. So the MPDES permit is a requirement of the Clean Water Act.
Right.
And it's expanded its area of permitting requirement to pond owners, also if you're spraying a dry ditch. And on our University of Illinois Extension website, we've got a great frequently asked questions fact sheet that our extension staff have worked with Illinois EPA to put together. You know, do I really need a permit?
Right.
And then there's a link to go to EPA's website to apply for this permit.
Right.
But,
the fines can be relatively substantial if you're not careful, right?
They can be $35,000 a day.
Wow. So this is something that, you know, you really ought to go check out the website and make sure that if you have water going from one place on your farm or your property to someplace else, you need to know about this, correct?
Correct. And it does take about 30 days to get the permit. So you can't just go down to the pond as an example and see the vegetation growing there and then call someone or buy that copper sulfate or whatever and deal with it tomorrow.
So this is something you guys need to check on really soon if you haven't already. And this is also the time when people start thinking about, you know, using some of the stuff they grow, the berries on the bush, making jams, and like the tomato example earlier, sometimes you have more and you want to sell them, sell your Aunt Ginny's jam recipe.
Right.
That's a little more complicated these days, isn't it?
It is. It is. There's a new law, Cottage Food Act, that has requirements for processing that food. If you're going to sell your raw vegetable at a farmer's market, then that's fine. But when you start trying to sell processed food, baked goods, then this act has some requirements, some food safety requirements that you must follow. And so your local Department of Public Health is that contact where you want to. But
it's another thing that, you know, you think you have everything all set. You probably ought to check the website out. You know, the extension can take you there, or public health, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The public health in your local county is who you need to contact. They've got some great fact sheets that they've put together to help make the process simple for producers of those kind of commodities. So if you kind of want to skip that process, you end up at the farmer's market and don't have that certification with all these jams and jellies, then you're going to be asked to go home.
Yeah, there's not, and you don't have to, not only reading, there's a podcast, right?
Right, there is a podcast. The University of Illinois Extension has a podcast called Green Side Up.
Okay. For those of us who get tired at night and don't want to read one more word, there's the podcast. So a whole lot of stuff going on, so we are beginning to get busy again, aren't we, Dave?
We are.
Okay.
It's busy
time.
Well,
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
As you can see, the weather's been so nice, I've started to work on my farmer's tan. But technically, we're still in that season that must not be mentioned. Bravely, Cameron Craig decided to look at the stats for February and hopefully gives us a post-mortem of winter in Under the Four Rivers Sky.
It has been an interesting and short winter, to say the least. Winter was only a word that provided images of snow-laden fields and crisp, fresh air. The biological spring swept in during the first 4 days of February and continued to strengthen no matter what the meteorological models predicted. We all kept saying that winter would finally break free, but it never did. February's 30-year average temperature is 31.9 degrees. This February, the average temperature was 37.9 degrees, putting it 6 degrees above normal. The warmest February was recorded in 1930 with an average temperature of 42 degrees. Precipitation for the month fell at 1.18 inches of rain, putting it 0.88 of an inch below the 30-year average. The only snowfall recorded was 2.3 inches. The beginning of the month started warm, and then the temperature fell after the 4th, giving indication that winter would soon break free. On the 11th of February, the daytime high plummeted to 29 degrees, supporting that idea that winter finally arrived. Also on this day, the ground finally froze to 6 inches below the surface. The minimum temperature on that day dropped to 12 degrees. Temperatures began to rise into the mid-30s on the 14th, and as each day turned into the next, the daytime high continued to rise to 51 degrees on the 17th. For a few days, the temperature remained in the mid-40s, and by the 22nd, the temperature skyrocketed to 57 degrees and 58 degrees on the 23rd. On the 25th, the daytime high fell back into the 30s and then jumped back into the mid-50s for the rest of the month. There were 2 snow events during the month. The first occurred on the 8th with 0.2 of an inch, and the second event was divided between the late hours of the 13th and the early hours of the 14th with 2.1 inches. The winter of 2011 and 2012 was 5.7 degrees warmer than the 30-year average. Total snowfall for the season was only 5.3 inches, 9.4 inches below the 30-year average, and the total melted precipitation recorded was 8.01, putting it 0.83 above the 30-year average. So what does this winter's climate mean for us in the months ahead? Without a significant cold winter to freeze the ground, the soil preparation will be somewhat difficult because the ammonia that was applied after the harvest has already broken down into nitrogen and leached out of the soil from the rain. Pest populations will also be on the rise because the region did not have a long-term freeze.
The other thing that temperatures that don't drop below freezing can do is it can affect pest control in the springtime. Pests such as Japanese beetles, rootworms, especially around here, corn borer larvae that find themselves in the wintertime maybe 8 to 12 inches below the Earth's surface during their wintering time period tend not to be killed off if those freezing temperatures don't reach deep enough within the soil profile.
On the other hand, a warmer winter does have its benefits. Without consistent snowfall events, there have been fewer automobile accidents. Warmer conditions also promote fewer illnesses because people enjoy the outdoors rather than being shut in close quarters. Now that it is the middle of March, daytime temperatures are about 20 to 30 degrees above the 30-year daily average. Summer has arrived very early, but no one seems to frown.
This last segment has kind of turned into animals in the news, and this week is no exception. First, from Australia. Reuters reports that flooding has forced more than 8,000 residents from their homes in the cities of Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. They weren't alone. The flood caused hundreds of thousands of wolf spiders to occupy the farms and fields near the town. In fact, the fields after fields has become covered in spider webs. Yes, those are spider webs. Experts say as the water recedes, the spiders will return to their original habitats, although not until they gross out just about everyone who sees these photos. Now, to cleanse the palate, this next video has no agricultural ties. It just makes me laugh. WEIU's own Jana Johnson brought in this video of something that happens every night at her house. It seems her dog Belle has a very interesting way of relaxing.
With this cordless Black & Decker trimmer for just $84.97. Every family's got it. The wild and crazy young.
You get it? And she's down for the count.
No animals were hurt in making of this video, just dog tired. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. And don't wait until you feel like Belle to get some rest. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. You know, on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're always looking for news that is of interest to the agricultural and the rural communities. Every week we scour the local papers, the state and national websites. We talk to lots and lots of people every day looking for information that will help and or entertain you. There is one more way that we can find out the latest news, topics, trends, and events that are part of your life. You can tell us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your town, on your farm, or even on your neighbor's farm. If you got a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. I probably won't know the answer, but I probably know people who do. Please let us know what is happening. You can call us at 217-581-7245. You can email us at weiu@weiu.net. We're on Facebook at WEIU TV, Public Broadcast Station. And if you tweet, we're on Twitter at WEIU1. So now that you got our number, don't be a stranger.